And that works. There you go. Look, hopefully Anthony will be in a bit until he gets here. There we are. Look at my background. Look at this. Ooh, there we are. I hope everyone can hear me. That's all good. So look, we've got an audience. Look, we've got an audience. How funny is that? How funny is that? How funny is that? I suppose the moral of this, right? The moral of the background, the backdrop, is this is going out all over the place. And if you're going to leave comments and stuff, just be respectful with what you're saying. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I hope everyone can hear me. So tonight I'm talking about all the unusual shit, really. Anthony will come on along in a little while, no doubt. I've been very busy getting better and busy. Just checking you can all hear me first of all. 1 second. Hopefully you can hear me. I can hear myself. That's a start, isn't it? Turn that music off. Turn that music down. I can hear myself. That's good. That's good. I hate the sound of my own voice, but that's fine. So yeah, so tonight I'm going to talk about Family Court 101. We talk about it a lot. But then there's always new people going through it, and there's always new people coming in, and there's always people that need to know what's what. In my view, and this is all just my perspective. Hopefully, Anthony will come along in a little while, and he'll share some of his experiences and what he's gone through as well. I think, but what I've experienced and what I've done, I think, like I said, these are just my friends in the background. They could even be one or two things. They could pretend to be your friends. Look at this one over here. Look at this one over here. Look, she's buying her some flowers. She's in awe over there. They're all really happy. But there you go. Look, so Anthony will be talking soon, hopefully, and then I'm going to be talking about this stuff. So if you've got caught this week, then ultimately the first thing you need to think about is how you're going to present yourself and what your situation is. I think a lot, if you're litigating in person, and hopefully everyone's litigating in person, because if you didn't realise, I'm not really too keen on solicitors. I think solicitors are in family court. I think solicitors are just not. They don't do what they're supposed to do. If they do, it's like a naughty school kid, right? They represent the court. They represent the courts, or they've served the court, and they ultimately, what they do outside of court and what they do inside of court are two different things. So I don't really respect them for that reason. And I think they raise too much conflict unnecessarily, and they are the reasons why. And I've sat on training courses and things with them, so I know what they talk like, and I know what they think like. And I think I'm glad I'm not one yet, but I will be sooner or later. One day when I finish my BA honours and law, and that's in process, second year, but I'm way behind on that. So the less I say about that, the better, I suppose. I think one thing we all know is that families are difficult at best of times, and when they're separated and you're moving and you're away from your children, there's nothing more difficult. And it's how you cope with that, and it's the whole tension of that helps to struck that. Well, for me personally, I struggled when I first went through it for the first time. I struggled with the whole emotional, not seeing my daughter, being homeless, holding down work, everything, fake allegations, all that sort of stuff. And I think I know how that broke me. That literally that finished me off. Literally finished me off. And if it wasn't for one person, everyone who speaks to me regularly knows, that person pulled me out of the gutter, and she said, "No, I've not stamped on any fish or killed any cats, so let's just get on with your life and let's try and be the best you can be," which I did. And that's why I do what I do, because that was part of my coping mechanism, because I was drinking excessively and wasn't in a good place. So that's why I do what I'm doing now, and I'm grateful. And I look back. So when you're listening to what I'm saying, and when I'm saying stuff, it doesn't mean it's going to happen there and now. There's a process to it. And what I've learned over the 10 years of going through this stuff and helping people through this stuff is there's a journey that everyone goes on. Everyone's a different journey, but there's no time frame. Your feelings are your feelings, and you've got every right to be angry, because it's the emotional change curve. Yeah, because you're going through change, and your life is upside down. And fake allegations, like I say, or exaggerated allegations. Look, no one's perfect. Yeah, no one's perfect. We've all got. I've got a saying, like, you own your shit. No one's perfect. I can't say that I was in my relationship, in my marriage. I spent 10 years trying to better myself and trying to be a better person. Only little things, like, not being so sarcastic, not being so mouthy back, thinking before I speak, eating things that I wouldn't normally eat. My ex-wife was from the Philippines, and she'd cook, and she'd open up a saucepan and be like fish face looking at me. I'm like, oh, I'm not eating that, because I used to eat with my eyes, and unfortunately I taught my daughter to eat with her eyes, and now I eat anything. I've gone to India and eaten all sorts of food, and challenged myself to be different, because I just don't want to be. If that's something that is a criticism of me, then I didn't want that. So I wanted to be a better person, and that's what you need to remember when you're going through this shit. I'm lucky enough that I've had people. Well, growing up, I've had people around me that have taught me, and the people who inspire me have taught me to keep being resilient and keep going. And you have to be when you're going through this shit. You have to be, because the amount of people that are close to suicide or thinking about it, at least, because I can't say I didn't, and because I did a lot, and I think I tried drinking myself to it. It's not nice. It's not good. So if you're going through it now and it's your first time, even if it's your second time, I've been in court multiple times with my ex-wife, and she's stopped contact, and there's whatever's been going on for over the last 10 years. Me and my daughter are still really tight, and everything's really good, as good as it can be. And I think you've got, when you go through it multiple times, you sort of get used to it, and that's where I'm at. And I think when you're going through it the first time, there's nothing more. Well, there's nothing more. No, it upsets me now still. It upsets me now still thinking about it. I walked, when you're not seeing your kid. I was working in Lewisham, and I didn't see my daughter for. There's a long story behind it. I'm not going to go in it now, but I was walking around Blackheath, posh village, all day for like 2-3 days, trying to find out where my daughter was. Like, my ex-wife took her out of the normal holiday club over the summer holidays. I was working in Lewisham, and I just walked around for days just looking for her. And my body has blocked out how long it actually was that I didn't see my daughter for. People ask me that, and it's like, yeah, it's difficult. So I feel for you if you're going through it now, and if you are going through it now, don't be shy, and reach out. There's as busy as we are, we can always sit on the phone and listen and talk, and give advice where possible. So I think one thing we all know is that families are better off with both parents contributing to the upbringing of the child. That's one thing we know, and one thing we also know is the laws changed recently. So conflict between parents is deemed as child abuse. The child will become I can see Anthony now. 1 second. The child will become a victim of domestic abuse, basically, and because of that, you'll have potentially more of a chance of losing your child to foster care. So I was speaking to someone the other day who called me up, and it was a female, and she was talking about X, Y, and Z. And I was like, look, just pointing out the law that it's changed, and if you've got to think what's better for your child. Your partner being around your child, or bringing up your child, and caring for the child, and loving the child, or trying to love the child, not being perfect because no one's perfect, or whatever the situation might be, or foster care, because that's literally where you go, and that's where the world's moving to. And I think if you've got parents at conflict, I think the reality is if you can't iron out your differences in a peaceful and loving way, then you're going to be losing your kids into foster care, or a high chance of that, in my view. I think. Anthony, what do you think about that? You just walked in. Look, he walked into the room. He's like, "Oh, fucking hell, what?" But yeah, did you? And by the way, look, I've got. Go on, I can't hear you. Go on.
I like your friends. I must say, I like your friends.
Yeah, they're good. They're watching. It's like a live audience almost.
With your children and social services, you know, you got to do what's best for your kids. You know, I'm going through. I had obviously social services involved, and it's hard. It's hard when you've got people in your case, and you know you never know what's going to happen, what decisions they're going to make with your children. My advice is the best thing you could do is, you know, bite your tongue with things, and just think of why you're doing it. If if your kids are going to go, if you're thinking, oh right, I want them to live with me, and you're going to still use that, like there's still going to be so much conflict between you and your ex-partner, right? Or if there is still, and there's some sense going, right, there's a risk they're going into care, you've got to stop all that conflict, because the only people you're gonna hurt at the end of the day, you're not hurting your ex-partner, you're hurting your children.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to think about. It's all about the children. It's got to be based about the children, because it's only going to be one day they're going to ask questions.
Cat's going a bit mental.
Oh no.
It doesn't like it. It gets a bit funny. It gets a bit funny when I do lives and stuff. It's like it wants your attention, and it's like the only thing I'm doing to it, but I'm not doing a live, is I'm being rude to it, and it's like, just stop. So then when I'm doing a live, it starts going all crazy. It's mental. But yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on there. I think like the amount of people I talk to who come in, we go into this thing, and if you've been through family courts. Now I started mine with fire and fury and anger, and you can't be saying this about me, and blah blah blah, and proving my innocence, and you've got to prove your innocence, because as a man, we're guilty in family courts. In my view, we're guilty, and you have to prove yourself innocent. In my view.
Yeah, 100%. Like when I first started, I split up with my ex-partner in 2019. I got the ball rolling with family court was in 2020, and that was around March time, January, March, I think it was. And I didn't know where to go. I was lost. I was like worried about going into court. What happened if they make their mind up, and I never see my children again. I was afraid to go in court, you know. But it is a big thing going into court when it's concerning your children. It is a big thing. But then, go on. What was you going to say?
I was going to say, how did you deal with that? How did you cope with that?
You just got to think why you're going through court. Yeah, you're not doing it for just your benefit, but you're doing it for the children's benefit. Or child, how many children you got? You're doing it for one certain person, and you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your kids.
And there's a litigant in person, like self-representing. Do you? What's your view on? Obviously, I know we've worked together. I've worked for you and whatnot, but I think what's your view? How would you? Because you were always umming and ahhing about whether you get a solicitor or whether you get like a McKenzie Friend, weren't you?
Yeah. I was in both minds of what to do. You know, your head's baffled of what to do. You know, you can go for a solicitor and they can say, yeah, we can do this for you, we can do that for you. Yeah, but then you have to look out for your research, do your little research on things. Then obviously I come across you, and you know, once you've done your research, you're thinking, well, it's been amazing. It has been an amazing journey. It's been up and downs with my call, but it's been one amazing little journey. Like how far I've come from the first time I started call.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think I've taken I think for me, I've taken the whole negatives, because I was angry, and I spent years being angry. It's like so long being angry. Even though I didn't think I was being angry around Lila, I was angry, and I didn't realise I was being angry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's only when she was older that she said to me, walking down Eltham High Street, and she said, "Oh, you're not angry anymore." And I'm like, I thought I wasn't angry anyway. But the kids can pick up on it, and that's one thing for sure. The kids can pick up on your emotions. They can pick up on the vibe. They're just not old enough or confident enough at that time, because they're young. They're little, like they're little spogs, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They're like, they can't even talk. Toddlers, or up until 7, 8 years old, they ain't going to be saying too much, because they've not got. They're little kids still. They're babies. They don't know what's right from wrong. What I do know is the children mature quicker when you're going through a breakup, when you're going through separation. Children mature quicker naturally. And I'm lucky enough that I've got the relationship with Lila that I have, that she talks to me about everything. But she's told me how she feels, and I know how she felt from when she was not seeing me, and she missed me, and she thought about me. And I say this to men, I say this to dads, I say, look, the kids don't forget you. They don't forget you. They don't forget you. Have you ever gone without seeing your kids at all? Have you gone a period of time without seeing them?
Yeah. When I first started, it was between 4 to 6 months where I didn't see. I've got 3 little girls, so like 4 to 6 months of not seeing them, it was a big struggle. But then, you've got to just think it's a struggle, yeah, and you need to get through it. You just have to, keep your mind busy. Instead of thinking about the worst, you think of the memories, what you made with them.
Yeah. Well, it's easy. It's easy to go down that spiral, isn't it? It's easy to go down the
100%. Yeah, it's very easy. It's not an easy thing to go through, Cole, or anything, or not seeing your children. It's very hard process.
You definitely got to have balls of steel. You've got to have balls of steel. You put your balls on the table, and like literally in the politest possible way when you put it into a judge, and because you take on a judge, and let's be honest, it's intimidating. It's intimidating as hell. Like talking to a judge, taking on a judge, putting across your story, putting across your situation. My view is you do it all in writing, in case you get nervous on the day or whatever. Most of it you're building up your stuff towards the end, but you do a lot of it in writing. I don't want to give too much away, but we've done most of, because no matter which way you look at it, the judges have to look at, when you put a statement in, they have to read it. Yeah, they have to read it to either acknowledge whether or not they're going to take it on or they're going to dismiss it. And psychology says that as soon as you've read something, you can't just switch it out of your head. You can't say, I didn't read that. A judge might say, I've not read it, I'm dismissing it. But they know that it's in their head. Have you ever seen that sort of like thing in court when, I take risks, I take calculated risks. We've not really done too much, but I think when they know they've seen something, and they won't let something else go through, because they even though they're not accepting my statement or whatever, the other side is trying to do something that's wrong, and because they've seen your statement, they're not letting that side go through either. So they're putting it at a stalemate, and they have to they look after you. The judges look after you. I think the judges look after you.
Yeah, like if they've got both sides of the statement, yeah, you can tell when they've seen it and think, right, how can we do this situation? And they do it for the best of both worlds, but they do it more for the children. They think about more the children and how it's going to affect the children.
So do you think that's fair? Do you think that's always fair, the way they do it? Do you think there's any bias in there at all?
There can be.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you look and think, are they doing it for the children, or are they doing it? Are they going on the other person's side? You have thoughts running through your head when you sit in the courtroom, yeah, and you're thinking, well, I've got to put everything on the line. Like you've got to get it over, because if you don't, then it might be the last chance you'll do it. Yeah. Sometimes you think, are they going on her side, or are they going on his side? Because you never know what they think, but you have that running through your head.
It's happened to you, though. Do you remember? It's happened to me many, many times. Like when people think they're talking, the judge is having a go at them individually, but then there's 2 people in front of them. The judge is talking to 2 people. That's what everyone needs to remember, yeah. And the judge can't point out, you to the other side. You're being an idiot. Blah, blah, blah. This is a whole farce. This is a joke. This is ridiculous. Because there's a process in place. Because the process is in place, and you have to follow the process. And the judge can't say, you're being an idiot. Blah, blah, blah. So the judge speaks to both of you at the same time. And sometimes, have you ever experienced that as well?
I've had that in court where the judge has said about thinking about the decisions what you're making. Yeah, think about what you're doing. Go home and think about what you're doing. And that's, I don't know who they're talking about because you'd never know. But you take that on board. When they say something like, think about what you're doing, then okay, let's go back and reflect of what's just happened.
Yeah.
And it might make you think a little bit more, going, okay, maybe he was reflecting on this. Maybe he was reflecting on that.
In your experience, do you think judges want peace, or do they entertain the fire and fury? In your personal experience,
on my first experience, I was like, right, okay. The first judge what I had, it was actually really decent, yeah. And I thought, okay, he wants peace. He wants to make sure these children don't get brought into the adults conflict.
Yeah.
And I was shocked when he said, I could go and see my children like that. I had a court on a Friday, and that Friday at 5 o'clock, 5:30, I went and picked up my children the first time in like 4 to 6 months. And I'm thinking, whoa, like it was such a big surprise to me because I thought I weren't going to see my children for a lot longer.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But so from then, how many judges have you had in your? How many judges? Yeah.
At the moment, I've had 2.
And then the last one, I think it's going to be staying. This last one, we hope, don't we? Really, I hope.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be the same judge for the next hearing, because I had a hearing on Thursday, then I had a hearing again on the Friday because she weren't good in court, and I had an emergency hearing on that Friday. I'm hoping the same woman who dealt with my last case is going to be the same judge this time, with fingers crossed.
What do you think has contributed to that? Because you hear all these horror stories there. We hear all these horror stories, and I've done something on TikTok the other night when I've not put it anywhere else yet. But I said, like, I think for me, I don't get any. We get nothing. Things don't always go to plan. Shit goes wrong. Yeah, shit goes wrong. Yeah, there's definitely that happen. That definitely doesn't happen. But when we're dealing with it right, and if you're doing the things in the right way, it generally goes okay, and you're not going to get shit on. It's the solicitors that shit on you, but that's what you need to be aware of and how to deal with that and how to cope with that. But the judges, the courts, I think what do you think on that? I mean, am I making sense there?
Yeah, well, when I think it was my second appearance at court where my ex-partner tried to put a non-molestation order against me, and she was throwing all these allegations at me. And I was like, right, okay, why is a solicitor? It felt like the solicitor was like ganging up on me.
Yeah.
Thinking, well, it's not. It's not true. I think the solicitors are crooks. That's my personal opinion.
How did you cope with solicitors? Because obviously, when you got a McKenzie Friend, the McKenzie Friend can't talk and turn around and say, "You fucking shut the fuck up," or whatever, you're talking nonsense or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, so you obviously could never speak like that in court in the first place. But what I'm saying is, we can't speak. We haven't got, unless we've got right of audience, we can't speak. So how do you cope with the pressure the solicitors put on you?
The way I done it, I looked at the judge, and I thought, right, pretend that solicitor ain't there. Pretend that solicitor ain't there. And I didn't make eye contact. I thought, right, the only person I'm looking at is the judge. And I'll keep my eyes on the judge and I'll be focused on the judge. Pretend she's not there. And that's how I got through the non-molestation order, because I just thought, right, she's not there, or he's not there. He's not there. So I just looked at the judge and I thought, right, if I don't look at them, then I won't feel intimidated. So I just kept my eyes straight forward and just blocked them out.
Well, good, and I think that's the best way of doing it. I think you can't really. I think you've got to, whenever you talk and you talk to a judge, you need to ignore what the other side's saying, because don't forget the other side is wanting you to be the person they portray you to be. And if you're going through non-mol, if you're going through non-mol, then the reality is that you're going through non-mol because you've got allegations against you against domestic abuse. So they want you to be angry. They want you to be fucking riled up and giving it to him large. And so I know how I failed in that miserably. I failed miserably going through at that stage of going through family courts, when I first started going, I was battling everything. I was fighting everything. I was like, no, I'm innocent here, and putting everything in there. And I was being led by Fathers for Justice at the time and Matt O'Connor. I didn't know at the time that was just giving him headlines, and that was more glorious, negative, bad news for the world to see in family courts, and that's what everyone perceives it to be. Everyone perceives it to be that bad. So I don't have that. Well, it's gone. We've gone. Oh, yeah. I don't have that. I don't have that.
You're gone.
Experience. There we are. I'm back. Do you know what? That was the cat.
Right.
No, seriously, the cat has just been attacking. The cat has just been attacking, like where the phone line comes in. I could hear it doing it out there. And I'm like, what's going on? And look at that, and it's gone a funny colour, and it's like, you little. Why do I get the most like the most angry cat? But anyway, so that was going well in the conversation there. So sorry about that. So like literally, so where were we with that? What was going on there?
We was talking about how you dealt with solicitors and
yeah. How you deal with solicitors? But what I'm gonna do with the cat tonight is I'm gonna let it out and then let it go play out by itself, and then let it see if it comes back. But anyway, how you deal with solicitors? You deal with solicitors in exactly the same way. Like solicitors are, for me, even more recently, like they drive the conflict. They literally instigate it. I've got so many situations now where the parties can communicate, yeah, and I think that's the most beautiful thing. When people come to me and they say, "Oh, it's a mess. It's horrible. It's awful," but they're still communicating with each other. They're still talking to each other. They can still get that line of communication, because that's really important. And that's one thing I wish I had with my ex-wife that I just don't have.
The way I look at it with like solicitors, yeah, they cause the conflict, because more conflict and more it goes on, more money they earn. So they're doing it to get more money.
Yeah. And again, I can, I'm not going to keep slating them, because one day I will be a solicitor, but I hope to change the way that solicitors are, at least in family law. Solicitors are perceived in family law, but just keeping it real. But I think they are literally talking about financials and this and that and whatever else, and they're just pure. They instigate more trouble to drive the case further forward. And then when you go into court, that's when you've got like. Then they're different character. They're like, oh, I want to help you. I want to support. I want to this and whatever else. But then outside of court, they've got the fuck you Friday email. The fuck you Friday email where they keep sending you every other fucking month or every other 3 weeks or whatever. On the Friday afternoon, they fuck your weekend up, and then they don't give a fuck. And then you can't reply back to it. You can't say to them no. You can't answer back because they think that they're righteous. And I think that for me, people they need to get off their high horse, and they just need to be like real and actually put the kids in the center of what they're thinking. It never makes sense to me. A man's trying to kill himself. He's fucking suicidal. He's not made no threats to kill anyone else apart from himself, because he's not seeing his kids. But then you make him fucking wait to see his kids. It's a contradiction in terms. I've never been able to compute that in my head ever.
It's weird. It's weird how they play it. They play like how can I say, like they play like the victim in court, but when they're out of court, it's a different ball game.
Well, that's for sure. With the generally with what my experience is with the people that I work with, and I can only speak for the people that I work with. I can't speak about the whole rest of everyone else. And maybe we attract that sort of person, or maybe I attract that sort of person. Who knows? But the people that I work with are sincere. They own their shit, even if they don't. When they come to me in the first place, they don't think that they've done anything wrong. And they don't think that there's anything. You know, we've all done things wrong. We all. If I look at my marriage, I know where things I went wrong. Whether I intended them to go wrong or not intended them to go wrong, they went wrong. In the eyes of my ex-wife, they went wrong. And I can own that. She doesn't own nothing. She owns the house now, and she owns and she's got my daughter. But ultimately she won't own anything that she's done in terms of bringing up a child or all that sort of stuff. And I think it's important that as not as a man, as a human being, as a soul, that we own, that we accept and we acknowledge the fact that we're not perfect, and own it in court, and it makes you more credible. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. You know, as you say, she might own your house, yeah, but at least she stood up in court and owned the courtroom, and that's what you've got to do. You know, if you just hide behind it, yeah, and let them intimidate you, but if it's going to make it worse, you're going to think, oh, right, they're all against me. But if you go into court and say, no, this is what it is, and you just go in there and absolutely lay it on the table, yeah, it'll be. I'll feel like it's a different ball game because you've laid it on there. If you hide behind it, it's going to be different, isn't it?
Yeah, you take away the argument, don't you? You take away the argument. You take away the need for an argument. I mean, I've sat. I'm not going to say that actually. I'll get you into it. But I've sat in multiple hearings where we're trying to keep the peace. We're just peacemakers, and that means taking a lot of shit. That means taking a whole host of shit and just fucking taking it on the chin. And a lot of people don't agree with that. A lot of people just think we should be fighting back or retaliating or whatever. And I get a lot of criticism for it. But it's the hardest way, but it's the best way. You're taking all this shit, and then literally you continue trying to make peace, and they still come up to you. And the judge asks you a question. You say one thing. You answer one question one way because you know the outcome if it goes down that road. And she'll answer it the other way because she's just the opposite of what you're saying, and she hasn't got a clue what you're talking about. And it's like, what?
They just want you, like, obviously with ex-partners and that, they want everything what they've said about you in their statements or to their solicitors. They say stuff to try and get that action out of you. Go, look, I told you this is the person he is, or I told you she's the person that she is. So they do stuff to try and get the anger out of you. And when they fail to do that, yeah, they're like, oh, so why didn't that go to plan? Because you didn't get angry in that courtroom to go, look, to give it to add fire. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there weren't nothing there.
Exactly that. So what I didn't realise that was happening to me, and we're all, I think, really vulnerable when we go into this position. The position I was in, homeless, like literally didn't know it was a messed up position, and literally sofa surfing. And when you're in that vulnerable position, you ain't got a clue. I went to the solicitors, took my passport, and that thought it was going to be all cushy. And it wasn't at all. It was like, I want £4,000 now, and I want this. I'm like, I don't got everything's in my house. I've got nothing. I've got nowhere to live. So how am I supposed to find £4,000? And that's the average bloke. That's the average person like that happens to. And I think it was for me anyway. And I think there's you find fathers of justice. You find they made sure I was angry. Whenever I went into court, I was angry, and that anything that happened in court, I was like a spark. A little spark went off, I'd be catching a fire. And that's not the right way of going about shit all at all, other than getting additional hearings. Well, you've always managed to stay calm because we've gone out, and you're like my bodyguard when we go out. So it's like, so you can be like a bit of like you can be, but you've always really sort of like placid and whatever. I don't see you that way. I think you're a big cuddly bear, but ultimately, that's what people can be perceived that way. People take first impressions, but we've all got a limit, but you've always been able to hold it cool. How did you cope with that?
Because what I'm like in everyday life, yeah. How you know me and how everybody else know me, and how you are in court. If you go into court all raging, all angry, you're only losing out. You're only losing out your children. Your children are losing out on you. What's the worth going in there all angry, risking everything that you've worked for? So if you've done it for the last 2 years, going through family court, and at the last hearing you messed it up because you got angry, and you've just disappointed yourself, but you've disappointed the children because you couldn't help but get angry. I just go in there, I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing it for my kids. I only do it for my children. And if you think about your children, we'll get you through it.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's emotional. I mean, there's not one. I get to the end of, I get to final hearings, and I'm doing the same thing every time, especially if we're in court, and they're doing the judges doing the summing up, and they're putting out their findings and whatnot. And I get emotional every time. Literally every time I find myself like looking at the ceiling, and like, because it reminds me back of the first time that I had to go through that shit. Because it's a rage of emotions. Literally, they're saying good things about you, bad things about you, good things about her, bad things about her, and you don't know which way it's going to go. It's like fucking the final of the X Factor or something. Or I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. Do you know what I mean? Because they say it's not you, it's not you. So it's like, so that's what it feels like, and that's what it feels like. So I remember going through it all, and I would just fucking, I'd blurting shit out every now and then. That's bullshit as well. I wasn't swearing. I was like, no, that's wrong. That's a lie. That's a lie. We've done that a couple of times. Let me just get this cat, because I'm gonna throw it out the window in a minute. 1 second, yeah. So you have to do a couple of feet, and then it's like runs behind the sofa, so it stops attacking the wire. And I could see the Wi-Fi box moving backwards. I'm like, well, there's the cat in it. So, but anyway, so ultimately, I've managed to. I was always like blurting shit out, and I had to sit on my hands. And when I'm sitting on my hands, and my legs going crazy. So there's lots of different coping mechanisms that we use to. I use. I see every single judge as like Judge Rinder. Yeah, I think they're little cuddly people as well. You got to look at them. It's how you perceive them to be, because family court is not the same as criminal court. If you're a criminal going into family court, they treat you differently. That's for sure. That's 100%. I'm 100% sure about that, because I got tricked, because I've gone through criminal court with my initial stuff down into family court. They treated me. I think that's part of the way they treated me in the way they did, and I retaliated in the wrong way. I've seen people who are just normal folk going into family court and getting treated fine. Do you know what I mean? As a litigant in person, because as a litigant in person, the judge has a duty of care to make sure that you understand everything. Would you say that's fair?
I think because if you're like, you've been through criminal court, yeah, and you've been made guilty of something, just say you've been made guilty of ABH or something like that, yeah, then they want to try and bring that out into you. They want to try and bring it out to you. So they'll be like, oh yeah, she's right. You know, they're always trying to bring out the worst. But if you just sit there, yeah, and you stay calm, focus on why you're actually there, then they haven't got no reason to discriminate against you. You shouldn't be discriminated in the first place, but they will do, because they judge, as I say, don't judge a book by its cover, but they will judge the paperwork of what someone else has written.
And it's the paperwork. I can tell you now, it's the paperwork that makes it reads a lot worse. The criminal stuff reads awful. It reads awful on a piece of paper, and especially if it's like violence and stuff. And Kafkas and everyone will make a massive issue of it, and then you've got to then prove that you're not going to beat your child up or kill your child. And it's like, hang on a minute. It was a fight that I got in. It was between. It wasn't. That's not how it went for me. Well, that's how it felt for me, actually, to be honest with you, because I had allegations against me of abuse with my ex-wife. They were all untrue. I owned up to the finding of facts here, and just for new viewers, I held up though. She was allegation of. I went through non-molestation stuff, all exaggerated. There was some truth in. There was some. You know, I've got a fiery tongue. Yeah, that's fair to say. And I was eating with my eyes, and there was emotional and psychological abuse that I didn't realise I was committing, but I probably was guilty of that. And I think, and I didn't realise when she was attacking me, when she's beating me up, and I'm defending myself, and I'm put her on the sofa, and I sat on top of her. And I said, stop fucking hitting me, stop fucking hitting me. I said to the judge, that's what's happened. That's what it was. That's what I know. That's the fact. And the judge said, well, that's a confession. I said, he said, that's domestic abuse. That's domestic violence. We'll take that. And I said, well, I'm guilty of it. That's self-defense though, surely. That's self-defense. And he said, no, that's fine. That's what it is. I said, all right, fine. I did that, but I didn't do what she was accusing me of. And the judge understood that, and the judge accepted that. And because I was honest about everything, like literally, I pulled my pants down, honest about everything. Drugs, the lot, I said it all. Yeah, she went to a certain level, and I went below it because she didn't think I would. And that probably, I don't know. She went to a certain level. I probably wouldn't. If I didn't go to that level and was so honest, I probably wouldn't have ended up with the way that I ended up, which is the standard sort of, I was living out of the area, so it was standard sort of every other weekend, half of holidays and shit. But that's after however many years of not seeing her in the first place.
But at least you can be truthful with yourself and go, to tell you what, I've held my hands up. I held my hands up on my mistakes.
Well, yeah, but
on the other side, she can't do that.
Look, I think the reality is, if you, I used to go to work. People will tell you I was working in doing pharmaceutical recruitment, regulatory affairs recruitment, and we were earning lots of money and partying hard and stuff. And literally, I was going to work with black eyes and cuts in my head and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And they were like, "How you getting that? How you getting that? Oh, just whatever." But we were having fucking great cocaine sex, fucking brilliant sex, yeah. But then it was the come downs that was a fucking nightmare. And then when I sobered up, she was pregnant, and I was like, "Oh, that's not what I like. I just don't like it. And it's like that's why she's never got married in the first place ever. But I have got a beautiful daughter out of it. You know, she's still. I regret the arguments that we've had. I should have left my relationship a lot sooner. I should have never got married. I should have had the confidence to say no. Yeah, it's a bit like drugs really when I was growing up. Confidence to say no. Just say no. Just say no. But the reality is, life is life, and I've had to develop that. I've had to experience life to be getting to where I'm at now. And I think I work really hard. I'm grateful for everyone that I work for because I can help and I'm helping them and I help their situations. I think if I hadn't have gone through that shit, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I think people too often take the negatives that they're going through and they don't realize that it's a good thing. I mean, how have you changed since from the beginning to how you are now? What's changed in your perspective?
Like when I first started Family Call, yeah, I was like, what should I do and all that. But now, when people say, oh, this happened, that's happened, I'm like, oh, right, okay. You know what I mean, I'm just chilled about it now because at the end of the day, it's not. I did sometimes get angry because I was like, oh, I should tell you what. Why is that doing that? Why are they doing this to my kids? Yeah, and it did bug me. But then when my kids could see that, oh, daddy's upset, and this has happened, I knew it was affecting the children. So now I'm just like, just tell you what, let it go over my head. Let it go over my head. And don't show them it's affecting me because I know if I show it it's affecting me, it'll make an impact on the girls. So I'm like, okay, just let it go over your head now.
So would you say, if I the one thing I really regret and I wish my ex would see some sort of sense of is the conflict. I mean, I can see how it's impacted Lila. I've spoken to you about it off whatever, and I've said about it, but I think that hurts me. That's something that I have to live with. And you get people who like trolls and shit who criticize and whatever and go around saying content whatever. But I think that does none of that hurts me. Nothing anyone says about me really, really, really hurts me. It bothers me at all. It's me knowing in myself that I've the conflict I've had with my ex-wife, and that's what hurts me. That's what really gets me.
Yeah, because it's impacted. It's impacted your daughter how it is now. Everybody's guilty. Everybody's guilty of conflict. Yeah? No one can say they're not guilty because everyone's guilty of conflict. Even if it was just raising your voice a little bit, you still causing conflict. So everybody's guilty of it.
God, mate, I'm not being funny. There's the professionals. They know there's a healthy amount or an unhealthy toxic amount. There's a spectrum. There's a spectrum for a conflict. You need, no one's ever going to agree 100% of the time forever. And I think it's about how you manage it. And that's what's brought me to where I'm at today, because I've had to reflect on life and shit and look at things that I've done wrong or whatever and try and be a better person back at it. So which is why now these days I'm like, literally, there's no conflict on me. You won't get any fire from me. Well, you will do. But you have to push me to a certain limit, or I have to be drunk and being really silly and a big kid again or whatever. Not that I do that often these days because I've got a broken leg, but still, back in the day when I was younger, last year before I had my bike accident, it was all over the place, and I was sober for the bike accident, just so we say, just put it out there. So that's good. So in terms of how would you cope with? Because you never had to go through a finding of facts, but you've had a section, you've had a high investigation.
Yeah, I had a section 37 report. The social service had to complete a section 37 report.
Yeah.
I've also had I think it was a section 7 report from CAFCAS as well. So I've had 2 of them reports. Against one of them was like against the ex, then the other one, I would say it was more against me than it was with her.
How would you? The thing is that there was stuff on both of those reports. It doesn't matter against who and whatever, but who. There was stuff against there that wasn't in favour of you on both reports.
Yeah.
And how did you cope with that? How did you deal with the fact that you're seeing all this stuff? Some of it's allegations, some of it's an opinion, because some of it's an opinion of the professional. How did you cope with not dealing, seeing that's the negative stuff?
You've just got to put it in the back of your mind and prove and show them. You've got to prove to them that, hold on, this is what I'm like. And, if they see it in their eyes of what you are actually as a person, instead of what they're reading on paper from the other party, it's different. What they see in real life and what they see on paper is completely different. When I had them involved, like the social services, and I picked up my girls, and the social worker was like, they're very, very excited to see you. I went, this is what it's like every fortnight when I see them. This is what they are, because they're excited to be with me.
Yeah.
And it just showed her the proof of what they actually like on with me, because they weren't too sure how they was behaving with me, and because obviously I've had bad allegations against me. But when she saw it, she goes, "Oh, they're very excited." I was like, "Yeah." And I went, "This is how you should be," because they're excited to see their dad.
There's a lot of people who, and I was one of them, who reacted to your allegations in a negative way with fire. I mean, that didn't help me at all. And I spent about, because I've been in court like since 2013. It's like been, I think it's 7 different cases I've been going through court with my ex-wife. Yeah, some of them were non-moles allegations to get extended, and they didn't go through, or just new non-moles and didn't go through. But the child arrangements, I literally prolonged my case through being angry. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being angry, because we've got the group that I welcome people being angry in the group, and I want people to be angry because it's part of the change. It's part of what you have to go through to get to the end. But going angry in court is not.
It's not the way forward. You can't go into court angry, because if you're going into court angry, you're showing your real light. And why would you want to go into court angry?
Real light. No, I'll cut you on that, because we're not always walking around angry. So it's real light. So it's not your real light. But like slapping the kids and like whatever. But
not like you're gonna go round and go, I should tell you what, give you a little slap because you stared at me. Nothing like that. It's just like, if she's put allegations against you going, oh, he's very violent, then you go into court angry, they're gonna be like, well done, this is what she said, and now he's coming to court, or she's coming to court like this. It seems like they're gonna believe more of her story than, do you know what I mean, what she said, than what you've said. Because if you're showing what she's written down on paper, then you're just
doing exactly. You're walking straight into the dragon's den.
Yeah, you've just shown it, ain't you? I'm not saying like everybody's angry or everybody goes into court like that, but if someone says, "Oh yeah, he's a very angry man" or a very angry woman, that's what they've put. But then you go into court and show that, then it just gives them the proof of what they needed.
Yeah. And I did exactly that. I went into court angry and whatever, and fell right into it. And not only that, the non-molestations and fighting the non-molestations when you've got child arrangement stuff going on, that's a waste of time. That's an absolute waste of time. So anyone knew, I think it's common knowledge now. You take an undertaking, no findings, get through to your child arrangements, submit your child arrangements application at the same time. As soon as you hear the non-mole comes through, as soon as it's on the doorstep, you submit your child arrangements. As soon as you separated, submit your child arrangements. As soon as you leave it, because unless you've got and there's a few people that I've spoken to, which means there's probably lots more, that can get on with each other and communicate effectively enough to better liaise and do the handovers and organise it without a court. I've got people who have come to me and said, "Oh, this is really mild compared to that." I think the courts take it. The courts take it just as seriously. They take it when people can communicate. They take it just as seriously, but they help them get a little bit further. So if I'd have gone into court communicating with Lindsay or whatever, it would have been. We could have made it even better. I mean, I mean, that's something I think we forget, because we go into relationships communicating, we have babies communicating, and we leave each other because we stop communicating. And that's the reality of what it is. And when you separate, and one thing I credit you for, and a lot of other people that I work for, is you able to just go in there, and your ex-partners, it's you go in there and you can still communicate, and you do it for your kids, and you may not like each other, but you respect each other.
That's it. You in face value, yeah. The way every pick up I do, every drop off I do, I just think of. Tell you what, I'm not doing it for the other partner, like the ex-partner. I'm not doing it to make her life happy. I'm doing it to make my children happy. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'll put a smile on my face every time, even if something is hurting me. I'll always put a smile on my face, because I know if I'm smiling, my children are smiling.
I think one thing you know really good at is making sure we speak positively. And there's lots of parents now. How would you cope? Because you've sort of experienced similar. I think not so bad, but yeah, we all do. It's part of the process. I'm not criticising anyone or anything. I think, but when the children pick up on grown-up conversations that maybe they shouldn't have heard, they accidentally hear them, that sort of stuff. How do you cope with? How did you deal with hearing things that you didn't like?
It was hard. It was very hard. I've heard a lot of things what I didn't like, but I don't worry about that, and I'll change the subject, because I know it's going to hurt me deep down. Yeah, it's going to kill me. I don't worry about that. We don't need to talk about that. Then I'll say, right, let's go to the park, or let's go and do this. I will do something to take their mind off what they want to talk about, because they shouldn't be discussing it. They shouldn't be discussing a grown-up conversation. What's going on? They're children.
Yeah.
Otherwise they'll be thinking, oh look, daddy's doing this, mum's doing that, and it's going to play on their mind. Then it's going to torture them. Then it's going to, later in life, it will mess with their head with mental health. It does.
I mean, I mean, my parents. Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, I think my daughter. I see my daughter. She was. I think it was a couple of years ago when she turned up around mine, and she'd all been self-harming and stuff. And I'm like, made me feel like I was angry because I didn't know about it. And I was like, no one told that's the thing. It's like people come to me and they say, "Oh, I didn't get told about the school. Didn't get told about this." I'm like, that's the world. I mean, that's the world I've lived in. That's the world I've had no choice but to live in. I didn't get, that's just unfortunately how it's been for me. So, I mean, what's your big experience? Did you ever say in the schools and stuff, that sort of stuff?
At the beginning of it, she changed the schools. I didn't even know she was changing the schools. She moved house. Didn't even know she was moving house. It's not until I found out what school I was going to, and I asked to call a meeting with the head teacher, and I had to prove that my children who were my children. I had to prove that I was the father of them kids.
And how did that make you feel?
Sorry?
How did that make you feel?
Felt like, well, hold on. If they put me down as next contact, who, if it felt like, who's playing my role now of a dad?
Right.
It breaks you. It breaks you because you don't know. You don't know what's going on, and if you're not getting informed about the school, what they're doing in school, it does kill you. Because you're thinking, oh, look, someone else is getting all the information about my children, and I'm not. So I had to take a role and go, right, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get a meeting, and I want to be kept in the loop. You've got the rights. As a father, you've got the rights to go, right, I want to be interested in school. You can ring up the school and go, right, I want a meeting, I can prove I'm the father. You might not have to prove it, but then you have got a right to see what they're doing at school, see what they're doing well on, see what they're not doing well on, how their behaviour is doing, their attendance. Everybody, male or female, have got the rights to see what's going on with their children.
Yeah, 100%. Unless they've got a court order, unless there's a court order involved saying you can't, then you've got everyone to do it. But you've got to be respectful, because some schools receptionists, it's like doctors receptionists. Yeah, I hate calling them doctors. Right, because if you get hold of them, it's one thing, but then it's like when you do get hold of the receptionist, it's like the most painful thing in the world. I think we've covered like being honest. Being honest in court is how, in a scale of 1 to 10, how important is both being honest and owning your shit thing? How important is that?
100% important. I'll say 10 out of 10. You've got to be honest. You've got to be honest with yourself. Yeah. Than anything. If you're not honest with yourself, you're gonna lie, and if you lie, it will just get you in more of a situation. Stand up, own your shit, and be like, "Should tell you what, I hold my hands up. What I've done in the past, I've done in the past. Now, should tell you what, 5 years down the line, I'm a completely different person, and prove that you were that different person that you was 5 years ago."
Would you not say? I don't know if you've heard it. I don't know, but I hear it a lot. The courts, the judges, just want to look forward. They want to move forward. Especially if you say something that literally counteracts something they've said to you. and you say something, and they're like, "That's in the past, Mister Blah blah blah. That's in the past. We want to move forward. We want to move forward." So, and I think that's why it's important that everyone goes in with that same sort of mindset, moving forward and trying to leave the past in the past.
And that's it. And you know, if you can't leave the past in the past, then there's something wrong. You know, you're never going to move forward. You're never going to be able to move forward and think positively because you're always living in the past and you're thinking negative about what's happened in the past. You have to go in there, think positive. If you don't think positive, then your mind's going to be all over the place. Go in there and go to tell you what, this is what's going to happen. Even if it don't happen, you've gone through court and you thought positive, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's the most difficult thing to do because you're feeling so shit because you're not seeing your kid and you might be homeless and whatever else. You might be self-medicating. But I think if you're self-medicating, go and find someone in a worse situation than you, because they're going to be. Because if you're going through family court, you're obviously working. You've got a home somewhere. You've got something. You might, there might be, I know it's homeless. A lot of people end up on the streets. A lot of dads end up homeless because of family courts and debts and this and that and whatever else, and they can't cope or survive.
There's always someone out there, yeah, worse off than you. Always.
Yeah.
No, and you have to put. You know, when I was going through court, the last thing I used to look at is the picture of my children. I'm thinking, I'm doing it for you. I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for you. And I thought, let's think positive, and that's what gets me through it. You look at your children, this is what I'm doing it for. You know, yeah, people are out there who are struggling more than others. There is, but you've got to go in there with a peaceful mind and think, right, this is what I'm doing it for.
You've got to overcome. It's sort of like overcoming. It's like you're selling. You're almost selling. You're having to sell why you're good enough. You're not Homer. You're not Homer Simpson. You're not You're not like your stereotypical drop dead dad or whatever you want to call him, whatever it is. You are actually worthy of being a dad, and it shouldn't be like that way. And I get what people say. Well, we shouldn't have to prove it. It should be equal rights and that sort of shit. But the reality is that is how it is. We can't change it. I thought my one case could change it. That is how it is.
That is the way of life. That is the way of life. It's sad that you've got to prove yourself who you've got to be, but then that's the world we live in.
It can't be changed. It can't be changed.
No, of course it can't.
And it can be changed. It can be changed if enough people got together and caused change and blah blah. But the system has made it so the men are not. I can't go out. I couldn't go and protest anymore because the judge turned around and said to me, "If you continue doing that, then you're not going to be seeing your daughter at all." Yeah. Then, so I was like, I'm like, what? I've got to stop. So I can't do it. So I suppose obviously there's a line. I clearly overstepped the line quite a few times. But the point is, they have control over the system, and you have to. If you want to see your kids, if you want to be and you want to be in your kid's life, what's more important, protesting or seeing your kid? Taking a step back. So I had to take a step back, and that's what I did because that's the control they have. So men can't go out and do what they want to do to be able to fight for their kids in on the streets, whatever. But then something needs to change because it can't continue like this forever, especially with the new world coming in.
It can't be. But that's where they've got you. That's where they've got you. You know, at the end of the day, they own you.
Yeah, we're slaves.
They put something into place. You've got to abide by them rules because if you don't, you get penalised with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it, and the road we walk, the road, my philosophy and the way we do go through family courts and shit. I've seen it at the end. They punish the woman by giving the man the dad a decent order. Yeah, and I think that's especially if the other side can't work and play properly and play fair and do what's right for the kids. I think that I see that a lot. I know you've probably limited time. It's probably past your bedtime and you got work. Are you okay for time or what?
Bedtime.
Are you right?
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's an easy thing to go through because it ain't.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. I think it's the most painful, life-changing, traumatic experience of your life. And if you don't come out on top, not on top, if you don't come out with an order that you think is fair, or you've been, one thing I am is I'm very real with people. I'm very sort of real. I'm like, that ain't gonna. I know what's generally going to happen in terms of based on my limited knowledge. And I think you got to keep. I think people get their expectations up too high, and I think they get led down that path. I think unfortunately too often. And I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult to accept that. I think. People want conflicts. People want, like, look, Fathers of Justice, Matt O'Connor, he wants people not to be successful in court because it gives him headlines. Yeah, because it gives him negative headlines, when negative headlines sell.
And that's how, as I say, you pay for what you get. Do you know what I mean? If you pay Like, do you know what I mean? If you're going to pay someone, oh yeah, I'll do this for 50 quid. Yeah, I'll take you to court and everything like 50 quid. Some people think, oh yeah, that's a good bargain, but in reality, it's not, because it's just going to put you in more shit than ever.
Oh mate, yeah. I've had people come to me and say to me that they've been told not to go to contact centres. They've been told not to do this, not to do that, not to do this. But I'm like, well, hang on a minute. The first thing you need to do is try and be agreeing with the judge. You need to build a relationship with the judge. By you saying no to something, and I get your reasons why, but I get your reasons why you're saying no. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I've got a couple of people that I'm talking to who won't go to a contact centre. I understand those reasons why they're not going to a contact centre. That's logical. These are cases where you've got allegations of shit against you that I'm talking about. Yeah. If you've got no allegations against you and there's no safeguarding concerns and there's nothing like that at all, I am totally backing you to argue your point of no, not going in a contact centre.
100%. If there's no reason for you to have a contact in a contact centre, why should you do it?
Yeah.
If there's nothing there to pin you, then you shouldn't have to do it. No, I agree.
100%. 100%.
If you're in a different hand and you've got like allegations of this, like serious stuff, then if I was in that situation, I would take a contact centre, because it's baby steps. You're agreeing to do something to prove that you're willing to do what it takes to see your children.
One thing that I've learned over the last couple of weeks, actually, speaking just that this guy did this similar thing to a few weeks ago, is we limit ourselves based on what the normal is. Yeah, he's taught me something else. It's like, even if you do have to go to contact centre, argue your point of saying you don't want to do it for the whole duration, because I've had people in the past do it for the whole case of the court case, yeah, and then you get into the court case and blah blah. But you need to you can also argue doing all those hours in a short space of time, if you can find yourself a contact centre that's open during the week, and then blah blah. I'm gonna let you go because you've got work tomorrow, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got work. Yeah, I always have. Yeah. I've just got to get up at 6 o'clock, half 6. I've just got to get up at half 6.
I think well, yeah. Well, I've got a few hours left of work, but no, I really appreciate you. Taking the time out and doing this this evening, and hopefully people will have got something from your experience and what you've had to say as well. So I really appreciate it, because it's nerve-wracking and shit doing it. So thanks.
That's fine, mate. Not a problem.
But I'll speak to you soon.
I'll speak to you soon. See you later, mate.
See you later. So there you go, everyone. There we are. Right. So that is it. So it's an hour. I've gone a little bit over. Oh, look, these ladies. Is she giving me flowers, or is she giving her flowers? Who knows? I don't know what's going on there. And there's a lady at the back there giving them hearts. Or is that the heart to me? I don't know. But this one's looking quite miserable. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, but look, I think what we've covered there tonight, and if you look at it carefully, you need to be respectful in court. You need to take a lot of shit, basically, yeah. And it's not the easy road. And if you look at David Goggins and you look at anything that's worth it in life, it's not the easy road that you're going to take. You take the difficult road. You take the challenging road. You take the road that takes you out of your comfort zone and makes you grow as an individual. That's the road you take. And sometimes you haven't got the choice but to take that road. I've chosen that road subconsciously all my life, I think, and that's why I'm fortunate enough to be. I'll say fortunate. I was at home when I was this. I can look at what I was, but I can look at how unhappy I was. And the less I have, the happier I am. And I'm grateful for the lessons, and I'm grateful for what I've experienced. I'm grateful that as much as I'm aware of my impact on my daughter, as you will be too. If your kids are toddlers or newborns and you're going through this now, and the conflict, if it stays as long as it has done, unfortunately, with me and my ex-partner, if it stays that long, and hopefully you're real enough to see the impact that is having on your child. And there it is. is throwing his toys at the pram. Really is throwing his toys at the pram. Or her toys at the pram. What can you say? It's a. I was going to say it's a female cat, but I'm not going to say that. It's a cat that's got a bit of an attitude problem. But ultimately, where was I? You can take this negative stuff and you can fall down and you can be sad and you can feel sorry for yourself but you've got to get yourself back up. And there's only so much time that you can stay down for. And the road that you walk down, the most difficult road, is the road that I support people on, and the road that people come out the back of it and they're stronger because they've seen the difficult stuff. They've been through the hardest stuff. They've gone through the hardest stuff. And because they've gone through the hard stuff, anything afterwards becomes easy, and it's easier to cope with, easier to go through because you've experienced a lot of hurt already. So once you've gone through this hurt, you can't, you get stronger and stronger. And then people who want you to be broken, and your ex-partner, let's be honest, wants you to be broken. Yeah, she wants you to be gone, and she doesn't want you to have a relationship with your child. Anyone going through family courts, and it gets to a certain point where you're going through finding the facts here, and you're going through finding the facts, and there's still no compromise. You've got to be honest with yourself, and that just no one piece of paper is going to make you suddenly that your ex-partner suddenly want to be making you dad of the year. Yeah, because it's not going to happen. So you're going to get, and I promise you, if you tackle, this is my thing. If you handle yourself in the right way and you own your shit and you take responsibility and you compromise, you sacrifice, you do what's right for your child, and it's obvious that you're doing that for the benefit of your child for the court, and that doesn't mean roll over and whatever, accept whatever's coming your way. It means doing the right thing. You will get an order that works. And when I see people saying all negative stuff and they're going through court and they're getting bad results, I get it. CAFCAS is shit. Sometimes you get really bad CAFCAS report. Sometimes you get this wrong, that wrong. It happens. I get it, because you get good and you get bad people. You get good people at jobs and bad people at jobs. Good judges, bad judges. But if you do everything right and you do everything properly, in my view, the people I've helped from the very get-go, it's you come out with better. You come out with what's right at the end of the day. And I think that's what's important. You need to know what's realistic in terms of having shared care, because everyone wants 50-50. Everyone wants that shared care. Everyone wants a 50-50. Everyone wants to see their kids the same way as they were before. I never got to see my daughter finish off riding a bike. I had to pay £50 per tooth. It's not cocaine. It's not cocaine. It's Lila's teeth. It's Lila's teeth. I had to pay £50 per tooth. That's a couple of grams of coke if it could have been. If that's back in the day. But no, it's Lila's teeth, more valuable than cocaine. Yeah, and I think I had to do that because I wasn't getting a teeth. I wasn't getting a teeth, and I said to hold on to your teeth. Don't let them fall out until my gangster tooth fairy can come along. I think she said she'd give you 50 quid per tooth. So there's a bit of bribery in there, absolutely. But I had to do what I needed to do to make sure that I got the teeth. You're going to miss out on so much. You are going to miss out on so much, but you will get that back. You'll get it back. As much as Lila hates me talking about it, she was with me when she come on her first period. She's going to remember that more than she will do her first tooth falling out. In fact, she doesn't remember her first tooth falling out. Something in that, no? So you need to keep so remember, every single negative there's going to be a positive. You might get to the end of your court case. You might even get to the end of your court case, right? You might even get to the end of your court case and you may not get the result you want. And you may look back and you think to yourself, I fucked up there in court, blah, blah, blah. Or it might have just gone totally against you. Maybe you didn't have a clue what was going on. But that doesn't mean it's the end. That doesn't mean it's finished. It means you go and retreat for a little while. You retreat, you sort yourself out, you find yourself a little bit, because you're still going to be broken, that's for sure. And then you make a new plan and you go forward. Yeah, because when it's not, John Lennon saying it, quote, if it's not okay, it's not the end. And that's what you need to remember. Yeah, if it's not okay, it's not the end. And I know that from going to court for the amount of times that my ex-wife has taken me back to court and stopped contact and blah, blah, blah over the last 10 years, I know that I've got something a little bit extra. Every time I come out of court, every time she's taken me back, I've come out with a little bit more. And if I was clever enough back in the day, I would have got it all back then. But I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And that's why I'm lucky enough to have gone through that pain and that misery to better make sure I can help others who are or were in a similar situation. And even now, still now, teenage child, separated parents. I wouldn't better tell people based on what my experience is, what normal is. When you've got a certain type of woman or partner or boyfriend or husband who is behaving in a certain way that is not attractive to anyone because they can't control their behaviors and they're too extreme. So that's one thing. So we've gone through it, yeah. So when people say dress appropriately, I don't agree with that. Yeah, you look at your standard, you look at your standard stuff in court, right? And it's dress appropriately, is tie and this and whatever else. There was a guy in Nottingham his name's Ryan, and he went to court. And I said to him, look, my thing is going to court and being you, right? And I think everyone takes all this stuff on the background here, and they might take my comic marketing and whatever and say, oh, it's not being too serious and I wouldn't go and trust that and whatever. The reality is you've got to be you. And I think you going into court being you is going to give you that extra little bit of confidence. Yeah. But you can't be you because you're worried. There's a certain line, but it's complicated, but you can't say the things and do the things that you might normally want to do. For example, you might want to say you want to go and buy your kids some clothes. The woman, the person at home will say that person's taking offence. I'm being offensive because they're saying I'm not dressing my child properly. That's how things get twisted. That's how it gets screwed. I'm seeing loads of comments there now. Shit, I forgot all them. So thanks to everyone who's commenting. Just seeing that's one there. So it's all decided before you say anything. Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Your meetings with CAFCAS are more important than your court dates. Yeah, you're 100%. Literally, you don't. Nothing. The decisions are made. The stats have gone up. The things have gone up. So it's now 82%, I think, from 2020. The amount of times that CAFCAS make a recommendation and the judge literally stick to it to the letter. 82%. 82%. Section 7, Section 47, Section 30. Whenever there's recommendations going in, judges are sticking to it 82% of the time. So your court dates are not actually in court. Your court dates are actually with your fucking CAFCAS officer, with your social worker. And I was guilty of it. I'm terrible for it. Yeah. When I was going through it, I was giving them back chat. I was causing grief. I was getting advice, wrong advice. You have to respect these people. These people are human beings. They have souls. And if you treat them with respect, and don't get me wrong, even recently, still now, we still get experiences where we are so well behaved, we take up so much shit, and people are like, the professionals like, this isn't right. They must think to themselves, well, he's not breaking, he's not doing this, and they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And then there's going to be a line. There's always going to be a line. And when that line's gone, and if they push you that far, then they jump on it. They jump all over it. But then by that point, you've already evidenced everything because you've not told them you're recording them. You've not told them this. You've not told them that. You've not told them already. You've got to protect yourself all the way through. But you have to show people respect. You have to protect yourself. But you don't go into a job interview and say, I'm going to record this job interview just in case you don't give me the job, and I'm going to challenge you on the fact that you're not giving me this job. I wouldn't record a job interview anyway, to be honest with you. But if it's that, you're not going to go into a meeting and say, I'm recording this. Don't do it. I've done it a few times when I was going through it. You're not going to get the natural thing out of it. You're not going to get. I record literally if I'm talking to a bank, if I'm talking to someone that I've got a complaint with, I'm recording the call. I'm not trying to tell them I'm recording it, but I'm recording it. And they say, oh, you can't use it. Of course you can. Of course you can. You've got evidence. You can use it. I've submitted evidence that. I've submitted evidence to court supporting someone. They've already sent it. They got it. They said it wasn't allowed in. I sent it. It was allowed in. What's the difference? I got told off for it, but still, it's worth getting told off for because the evidence changed the case. But you have to take risks. You have to take calculated risk. And when I'm saying to people, when they're saying, "Oh, don't be emotional," you have to be emotional. You have to be you. Yeah, you have to be you. And if someone's saying something silly, I've laughed in court. I've laughed with the person. But back when I was going through court, I wasn't laughing. I was shouting. I was saying, "That's not true. That's not true. You can't do that. You can't do that." You can be animated. That's the right word. Animated. When I'm sat in court and we hear something and we hear it's total bullshit, and we just look at each other and we're like, what the and there's a barrier up there. There's a barrier, so they can't see you. You can't. It just doesn't matter. So we can just look at each other and be like, if it's a CVP, you want mute. I remember when I did my final case with my ex-wife in 2020, we were CVP. It was just at the end of the first lockdown or whatever, and she couldn't log in. She couldn't log in, so she couldn't see her face. And I think it's hilarious when people do that, because it's very simple. You just log in and see your face, and then she couldn't do it. The judge made a very snidey comment, so I was like, "Ah, the judge is on point here. The judge can see the shit what's going on." And the judge said to me, "Do you mind not seeing her?" I said, "Well, it's a final hearing." I said, "I'd much rather see her. She's going to lie to you. I'd much rather her look into your eyes and lie to you, but she can't. So crack on. It is what it is. I want to get it done." I was blasé through the whole thing. Blasé because I'd fed up with it by this point. Fed up with it, and they could that come across, and that's what got me my final order, which was the one we've got now, which would be in place if it was being followed. But again, I'm not going to go back and chase it in the court, because my daughter's 14 now, and I made the promise to her that we're never going back to court for ourselves. Yeah, because no kid wants social services snapping around them in school. No normal kid, when there's normal, wants to be taken out of a classroom to go and speak to social services or go and speak to CAFCAS, because it makes them feel different, because that's the first start of it being different. I remember Lana telling me that's the first stop, being taken out of class to go speak to CAFCAS. All of her mates saying, "Oh, where you going? Where you going?" Don't get me wrong. All of her mates' parents are split up now anyway. And then all of her mates' parents come to Lila to say, "Help me with this problem, help me with that problem." I think it's in the genes. But yeah, so ultimately, she literally, she'd gone through what everyone else goes through that few years later. She's gone through it first. Nothing. At least I can say she was first at something. I think it's give her a medal. But that's what got me to the point where how can you say it? Not caring anymore. Like literally caring what my daughter feels like, caring what impact I have on my daughter's upbringing, caring how what sacrifice I'm going to make, because I could argue, I could go and do a police welfare check, I can do this, I can do whatever else. End of the day, if there was any concerns, and this is how basic it is, coming down to meeting to child's basic needs, if there were any concerns with how that parent was parenting, that parent wouldn't be a parent. That parent would have the child taken off them. And there's obviously a cycle to that to happen. But ultimately, social services would be all over that shit. And if social services are going around there, I know it's premeditated. I know CAFCAS, they get a free warning, they go to the house going to be nice and tidy. Of course, it's not going to catch them out. Of course, I get it. But you have to let the stars and the moons do their thing. You have to let the bad. If it's bad, you've got to let it be bad. In the same way, look at it like this. Look at it like this, yeah. In the same way as mum won't give you contact because they're waiting for you, that you're going to upset your child, you're going to do something wrong. So mum's scared of you having the child, or dad's scared of you having a child because you might do something wrong. There's no gender out of it. The non-residing parent, the residing parent is scared that the non-residing parent is not capable of parenting. The non-residing parent is scared that the residing parent is not capable of parenting. Because of that, the professionals will go to the house and see if the residing parent is capable of parenting. If they assess that that parent is capable of parenting, there is no point on you even making a welfare check. There's no, well, there is if it's that serious, don't get me wrong, but there's no point in you continually. I was advised when I was going through this for the first time, make welfare checks. Every time you go to contact and the contact doesn't happen, make a welfare, do a welfare check, do a welfare check. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that anymore, because you're impacting your child. You're impacting your kid, because all they're going to see is, "Oh, Bill turned up, checking you're okay." Blah, blah, blah. That then puts them on a phobia on seeing the police or going to the police. Don't get me wrong, you shouldn't really trust all of them. Again, it comes with being good policemen and bad policemen. You get bad policemen, you get good ones. Same as you get good employers, you get bad ones. And when you realise the world is like that, sort of like, well, okay, if I can be as good as I can be and the best version of me and treat everyone with respect, and then obviously when people shit on you, because people will shit on you, it happens to me all the time, people shit on you from a great height, and it's like, still doesn't stop you from being nice. You can go and fight fire with fire. I've got no more fire left in me, because I'm trying to teach my daughter that love is the right way, and being peaceful and happiness is the right way, because as a result of having an angry mother and having, for a certain amount of years, having an angry father, I didn't realise I was still, but she was picking up on it, so I must have been up until 2020, 2019, something like that. 2018, I don't know when it was, but I thought I was not angry from 2018, but she said it in 2020 when we walked down at Eltham High Street. So I'm taking 2020. I'm taking 2018 actually. It depends what mood I'm in. But ultimately, my daughter picked up on it, and your children will be picking up on it as well. I'm telling you. I'm lucky that my daughter is able to tell me that stuff. She tells me everything. She tells me everything. Things I don't even want to know. But I'm grateful for that. But you got to think as well, though, right? She's 14. Is she 14? 13, 14, something like that. She's 14, I think, or 13. I can't remember. But ultimately, she's old enough to have her own opinion and her own say in things. And everyone said to me during the summer, I was like, oh, you should go now. You know, you should go and swoop in and go lives with water and blah, blah, blah with you. Didn't do it because my daughter still needs her mum and she loves her mum. And I've said this before, it's taken me 10 years to get to this point, but I would still honor Lila by making sure that Lindsay is protected. If anything was ever bad happening to her, I would make sure that Lindsay would, I'd defend Lindsay. I'd absolutely defend her. I wouldn't necessarily feel like that when I was first going through it all. But to make sure Lila's okay, I would do that. I would actually reel it, and I would. And it's like, she wouldn't do the same for me at all. But ultimately, it's not about what she would do for me. It's about me being a human being and me doing what's right. And I think doing what's right for my daughter and showing my daughter that the love is better than hate, and the world wants everyone to be angry. And this is a really bad time to be alive because the world is vibrating negative thoughts and negative frequencies and shit. So it's making everyone angry. You look at, I see TikToks where the kids are going through London and fucking robbing shops and all this other sort of stuff. Why do you think they're doing that? They're doing that because they're not getting what they want. And what do they do when they don't get what they want? They start throwing their toys at the fan because that's what they've learned at home. That's what their mums taught them without the dad being around, or what the dad taught them without the mum being around. These people, these kids that don't just behave that way, thinking it's okay. They're behaving that way because they've seen their parents being angry, and they've seen their parents being, their parents are angry, so they think it's okay to be angry. Yeah, that's, in my opinion, that's just how it is. So, but I live wrongly, that's my opinion. One thing you need to remember when you're in court is don't overspeak the other person. Let them put your hand up like you're in school. Show that's one thing that works really well, especially on CVP. If you're on CVP and you're not trying to get a word in, you're putting your hand up and no one's listening, then when you get a moment, take yourself off mute. When you get a split second, you say, Your Honour, sir, whatever you might be, Mom, can I speak, please? You'll get shut down. But then you'll say, she'll say, you'll come to in a minute. And then if they don't come to you, you can say, well, can I come to you? Anyway, I'm gone on for 20 more minutes than what I needed to. So much more to say. Not enough time to say it all, but there you go. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for doing everything you're doing. Thanks for supporting. Thanks for letting me support you. If anyone needs any advice, don't be a stranger. I've got these people don't answer the phones. They're just literally I'm going through a comic stage of artwork. That's all it is. They're not real. But anyway, look, peace and love, everyone. Be happy. Look, give love, and I swear to God, let's just give love. Look, because as difficult as it is, as frustrating as it is, taking the moral high ground, and just it's easier to be nice. It's easier to be loving. It's easier to just not be stressed, and whatever's going to come is going to come. Yeah, and let it be. Let them throw the shit at you. Let them throw the shit, and then just fucking take it and rise above it and be like, look, I've got more and more people now going into court saying we don't want to find any facts. We're retracting our statements. We don't want no allegations, blah, blah, blah. Switch it on its head. Have the courage to do that. And then see what happens. Because if you go in doing exactly what everyone else is doing, you're going to fall into the same trap as everyone else falls into. There's more. There's much, much more where that comes from.